So this story I'm gonna tell you guys is gonna sound absolutely bananas, but I promise you one thing, it's a real story. When I was 8 years old, I grew up in an island. It's a very, 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 very small town. The type of town where everyone knows each other, and if you do something bad, somebody is gonna snitch to your mom, so you gotta be careful at all times. And in this very small town, we had 5 people that were homeless and they also had mental issues. Now, mind you, I was 8 years old back then. And one day I'm sitting down, and one of these guys, we used to call him COCO Man. I don't know what his real name actually is, but he sat next to me. And no big deal because, everyone knows him, everything's fine here. And he sits next to me, and this guy gives me absolutely the worst advice I had ever gotten in my entire 8 years of life. And he tells me, Tommy, when I was 5 years old, I left my parents' house. And you're 8 years old, and I think you should leave your parents' house because it's holding you back and it's done miracles for me. And I was like, okay, obviously, this is very bad advice. Like, I could tell even back then. Until this very day, my mom always makes fun of me with that joke. She'd tell me all the time, like, why are you still in the house? You need to get out. Like, you're like 10 years old. Get out the house. You need to leave, right? It was always funny. But that day, I learned a very valuable lesson. And the lesson is that sometimes you're going to get bad advice and it's going to be obvious because the person obviously is not stable. A lot of things going on there. It's obviously bad advice. But sometimes, a lot of times actually, you're going to get very bad advice, but you're not going to be able to tell. And I started noticing that as I got older, as I went from 8 to 15 to 19 to in my 20s. And I noticed that my professors told me, Tommy, don't start a business. It's risky. And these people, they have suits on, they have jobs, they have cars, they have degrees, they have, all these merits. But one thing they don't have is any experience in starting a business. But their advice seems to be valuable. I learned to ignore those people. I also got advice about relationships, young, dumb, and in love. People that had 3 divorces in their history telling me, you need to stick around because that's what really matters. And I'm saying to myself, do I really want to listen to a person with 3 divorces about relationships, okay? Very dangerous. And lastly, I got a lot of advice about money from people that look absolutely like everything is fine until you dig a little deeper. Turns out they are in massive debt. They don't own the house, they don't own the car, they don't own anything. And if they don't work for a month, they are on the streets. So I learned to ignore those people also. Now, what does this have to do with bad financial advice? It has everything to do with it because most of the advice comes from people not like Coco Man, that obviously something's wrong there. No, it comes from the person with a suit, with a job, with smiles, that seems to be smart, intelligent, everything seems to be fine, but in reality, the advice is absolutely trash. So over the years, I've collected 21 of these trash advices that are outdated, that don't make any sense absolutely, and the goal is to share them with you. But I'm almost contradicting myself because here I am giving you advice and I'm telling you to take my advice. Well, don't take my advice. Use everything I say in this video and go analyze it, try it out for yourself, and you are going to confirm that what I'm saying is true. But don't believe me, try it out for yourself so you can actually see what I'm talking about is actually real. And do me a favor while you're doing it, smash the like button, take a second, and also if you're new here, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified. By the way, shout out to Coco Man. I got news and he's still okay. So that's good. Now, the very first bad advice I got was basically, you want to cancel the credit cards you're not using because what's the point of actually having them? They're just there. In reality, well, a credit card is not just there. It's actually accumulating credit history for you. So if I were to cancel that credit card that I got when I was in college, my first one, that's gonna mess up the entire average of my credit history and most likely lower my credit score like crazy. So unless your credit card has an annual fee and it's costing you money in that sense, you shouldn't cancel it. Just keep it active with one small bill, pay it off every month, and call it a day. No, you don't need to cancel it. It's actually going to hurt you. That's what they don't tell you because usually they don't know. Now, second advice here is always pay in cash. I agree, but I have one exception. When don't you pay in cash? Whenever, one second here, whenever you have the cash on hand to pay off the credit card in full, and by paying with the credit card, you're gonna get at least $100 in cash back. I found myself remodeling a home and spending thousands of dollars in cash, and I said, well, I could take all these expenses that I have the money for in cash, buy it with a credit card, pay it off that same month, and boom, there you go. I get $1,000 back in cash back, and that's not pretty bad. But that's the only exception. For the most part, pay everything in cash. Everything, including the car, including everything. It saves you a lot of headaches, and people that usually borrow money and pay with credit, they tend to spend 18% more on average. So that's why paying cash is good, but you can have that one exception. Now, the third bad advice is work hard for money. This is very bad advice, and the person that gave it to me, I won't mention his name, but he's still working very hard for money in his old age. Now, the goal with money is that money is a tool, and your job is also a tool. And the goal should be to acquire passive income streams, so then working can become optional. So I agree. Work very, very, very hard for money, but use that money, most of it, 10 to 50% of it, to invest it to make you passive income, so then you don't have to work that hard. You know, I used to say all the time, I love working hard, but I love the option of working hard. I don't love having to work hard, especially as something that I don't enjoy. It's a big difference. 4, stay loyal to one job and work towards your pension or your 401k match. I'll tell you a short story here. My story is a real story, and it's about Bob. Obviously, the name is not real. But Bob and I worked together. I was there for like 3 months to a year. Bob was there for 15 years. One day, the company had cutbacks. They fired Bob without blinking. Bob no longer works there. Loyalty doesn't pay when it comes to jobs. A job is a tool. It is not your identity, and it is not a person. It's a business, and it does not really care about your feelings that much. So my point is, always stay open to going where the best offer is. Work for yourself. The people at your job, they're great people. They obviously are. I know that person, you know, Kyla, Ashley, Brenda, Michael, Bob, whatever their names are, pretty cool people. But if they're your friends, they'll be friends with you in another job making more money either way. So don't stay somewhere because I'm loyal. Doesn't matter. Get what's best for you. 5, buy-in is better than renting. You know, I pay $2,000 in rent here in New York, and I stopped that because I was wasting money on rent. So I bought a $500,000 home. It's $1,000 more, but at least I actually own the thing after 30 years. The truth is, you could get away with renting for 7 years with those same exact numbers and actually be saving more money than you would with a home. Because by the way, whenever you buy a home, everything there is your responsibility to actually fix. Whenever you're renting, if you want to leave next month, if something breaks, you don't got to fix it. My point is always, you want to run a rent versus buy calculator to find out when is renting gonna be better than buying and when is buying gonna be better than renting. Where I live right now in Puerto Rico, I pay $725 in rent, and I bought a home for like $130,000, put some money into it, but the math said, hey, if you're gonna stay here for 5 to 6, 7 years, it makes sense to actually buy a home. But if not, it doesn't make sense, okay? That's the idea. So always run your numbers. And by the way, go on Google, type in rent versus buy calculator, and you'll see exactly how everything works. But it's not that simple. Just to say, it's always better to buy than it is to rent. 6, a professional can do a better job than you can. So why not go ahead and hire a financial advisor? That's only going to cost you 1 to 2%. Well, Morningstar, which is a very famous publication and company that actually runs all these numbers, They did some research and they found out that usually those professionals in hedge funds and mutual funds, they don't actually beat anybody. They don't actually beat the market. So you spend more money with them while you yourself by yourself can just buy, for example, the S&P 500 index fund, leave your money in there, get the market average and do better than they do without having to pay them 1 to 2%. Also, more research shows that whenever you pay somebody 1 to 2% of your portfolio every year for a fee, it actually eats up around a third of your potential profits compounded over 30 years or like 10 years or 20 years. My point is, don't listen to professionals do better because they really don't. And the research is there to actually back it up. Look it up. So index funds, ETFs, they really do very well. If you want to copy my portfolio, the link is down below to M1 Finance and what I invest my money into. 7, spend 2 to 3 months on an engagement ring. That's the rule. This rule was created, guess by who? A diamond company. I wonder why. Because maybe then you'll spend more money buying diamonds that don't really go up in value in any way whatsoever. Now, the idea is when it comes to getting married or buying a diamond, buy whatever you can afford. Whether it's 10% of your income, 5% of your income, doesn't matter. You know, the whole symbolism behind a ring is just commitment, and that itself is like marketing in a sense. You don't need a ring to commit, but it is like part of our culture, so I understand it. But the point is, you don't need to spend all your money, be in debt, financial struggle to put a ring on somebody and then have a very bad marriage, because most marriages end in divorce because of finances. 50% of them, okay? So worry more about how are my finances looking than worrying about how big is this stone and how pretty is it gonna look. Don't worry about that stuff. 8, you should always have $1,000 in your emergency fund. You know, that's not true. It's actually not enough. Most people don't even have that. But reality is 3 months, it used to be a good amount worth of expenses, but even now, 6 months to 12 months to 18 months is becoming more of the rule. Basically saying the more you have set aside in case of emergencies, the better it's gonna be. But I cap out at 12 months, but having 18 months, depending on your job, it's not that bad either. The more money you have set aside for emergencies, the more security and confidence you're gonna have in case you do get fired from that job, like Bob did. Remember Bob? 15 years, got fired, no heads up, boom, that can happen. So having money set aside is very important. 9, never ask for a raise. You know, I always remember this quote, it's very funny, and it's that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. The screaming baby gets fed. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't knock, no one opens, okay? It's that simple. So you should ask for a raise. Just like a company raises prices usually every year or 2-3 years potentially, depending on your pricing power, the idea is you should also be ahead and say, hey, I need a raise. Inflation's going up. My competition out there, well, those employers are paying more money than you are. So obviously you don't say all those things like that. You look it up on YouTube and type in how to ask for a raise properly. Ramit Sethi has great examples on that, okay? But you should ask for a raise because it's like having built-in equity or built-in value to your employment, but you're not actually exercising it and asking for it. Because they're not gonna give it to you, you gotta ask for it. And sometimes you gotta be able to leave to actually get what you need or what you deserve. And sometimes if they say no, you can get a raise somewhere else by leaving. Why not leave? Like, all this loyalty for a job is cool stuff, cool vanilla, right? But it's not really, no. Go where the money is because, and your happiness. Money and happiness, okay? Let me put it like that because you don't want to go just where the money is. You want to also be happy, obviously. 10, you should keep a balance on your credit card to maintain your credit score or to build your credit score. It's not true. I think this rumor was created by banks in order for them to actually charge you interest. So when you hold a balance in a credit card, that accumulates interest, which basically means profit for the bank because they want to make money when they lend you money, right? But if you pay it off before the month is over or your cycle is over, they don't get paid anything. So no, it's not true at all. I actually have some proof here that I want to show you. I kept a balance open on my credit card. Okay, on my credit card, and my credit score went down by 47 points. It's not a joke, not a drill. Check it out. So here's my credit score, and as you can see right here, it went down by 47 points. And then I paid off the balance in full, And guess what happened? It went up by 47 points right there. So you don't need to keep it balanced. It actually hurts your credit score in some cases, depending on your credit utilization. It's not needed, and it actually gives them money. And no, don't think that I left the money in there for long enough. You just got reported, but I did not get charged any interest, and it was for that one-time rule exception where I spent a lot of money, like over $4,000 or $5,000, and I could get 5% cash back, and that's why I did it. And then I had the cash on hand to pay it off. I follow my rules. I'm not like the person that says something but doesn't do it. It's not my thing. Now, 11, more education is better. And a degree is better than no degree. I always say this, trash is still trash. Useless is still useless. If you go to college, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, or you go to a trade school, you want to be a plumber, you want to be an HVAC repair person, whatever you want to do. If it's a trade service that actually provides value to someone out there, you're going to get paid. But if it's something that the job market is shrinking, nobody cares about the job, you're not going to get a job, then it doesn't matter if you have the degree. It's still trash, it's still useless, and it makes no sense. And you're also in debt, and that's not what you want. My point is, a degree is an investment. So do your research before you get a degree. And it's not just based on what you love to do, it's also based on what you like, what you're good at, and what's going to make you money. Because this is an investment, okay? So pay attention to that stuff, because a degree is not good if you're not gonna use it. How many taxi drivers do I know, or bartenders do I know, or security guards do I know with bachelor's degrees that are never gonna use it in business administration? I know a few of them, okay? You don't wanna be those, because usually they have a lot of debt also. I have a friend with $87,000. Let's call him Bob also, but that's not what you want. And he doesn't use his degree, by the way, because it's a useless degree, just being honest. 12. Never buy a used vehicle. I'm going to use the name Bob again. I think Bob is the dumbest person I ever met in my life, because Bob doesn't exist. It's just like all the bad stories, and the name is just Bob. So if you're Bob, I'm sorry, Bob. But Bob, I had this conversation this morning, okay? Never buy a used car, because they're not good apparently. But the minute you buy a new car and you drive it, it's used. Is it still good? Obviously it is. But I have a friend, Bob. He bought a car 3 years ago. He's been paying it for 3 years. He got a 7-year loan, and he goes back to the dealership to get some maintenance done on it. It's a Mazda, and they tell him, hey, we're gonna buy your Mazda CX-5. We're gonna give you a 2022 Mazda CX-5, and we're gonna leave the payments the same. Just extend your loan for another 7 years. That's basically it. So 7 years, same payment. You trade it in, you get warranty, all this stuff, and he's like, yes. Yes, because it's a new car, and that way I don't got to deal with used car stuff. Stupid idea. Okay, here's why it's stupid. I always say, if you want to turn $1 into 50 cents, buy a new car, because in 3 years it turns into 50% less worth than it actually was. So buying a used vehicle that's certified used from the dealer, or that has a very good track record. My vehicle is 8 years old. Has no problems, no real problems. I drive it just fine, and I bought it for half the price the dummy bought it for when he bought it new. So it saves me a lot of money, and that money that I'm not using, I can just put aside $2,000 and for emergencies on that car repair, and just invest the difference and make more money. Don't be Bob. Don't buy a new car. Makes absolutely no sense. Buy a new car when it's 4 years old. That's when you need to buy it. Okay, that's my rule also. 13, you'll be a millionaire if you stop drinking Starbucks coffee and if you stop eating avocado toast for the next 4 decades or so. So buy avocados when you're like 80 years old or whatever. The idea is that all these little frugal hacks to save money, they're cool stuff. But the best way, makes no sense a sentence, but the best way to actually become a millionaire is by intentionally saving money and investing money. And it is okay to spend $5 on a coffee, $10 on some toast. I don't know where you buy that for that much money. I'm sorry, but I make it at my house. But yeah, it's okay to do it, right? But the idea is, if you are spending $5 here, $10 a year, but you're investing $500 a month, you're gonna be just fine. So focus on being intentional with your investing fund, not focus on all these little things here and there, because you want to focus on the big things that are going to have a big effect when it comes to the long term. 14, your home is the best investment you're ever going to make. It's actually not. It's not true. I know, it sucks because everyone says this. But a personal home is not an investment. An investment would be if you buy a rental property, you put money into it, obviously, whether you pay cash or you finance it, and you get cash flow out of it. That's a return on your investment. And then in the end, you get more money than you actually put in. But on a home, people always say this story. Well, Tommy, my grandma bought a house for $200,000, later sold it for $400,000 30 years later. Well, the truth is, that's cool stuff. But how much money do you think your grandma spent, for example, on repairs, on taxes, on insurance, and everything else, and also the maintenance of the property, and the new kitchen, and the new bathroom, and the new this, the new that, when everything broke, and she had to fix everything, the roof started leaking. Like, when you actually break it down, all of these phantom costs you don't notice right away because they add up in the end. When you add all this stuff up, what you're really doing is breaking even. So a home is not a good investment. It's not an investment at all. What it is, though, is a safety net in a sense. And that's why I bought a home. I paid cash for it, but I bought it and it's absolutely the worst investment I ever made. But it is a safety net because it says I have no shelter costs anymore because that's paid off. And on top of that, my expenses are very low, which gives me more money to go ahead and invest. But if things go wrong, I can always have a home and no one can take that away from me. Unless I stop paying taxes and I get a lien on it, but that's not gonna happen. Cross your fingers. But that's the idea. A home is just a safety net. It's not really an investment. Your investments are gonna be things you put money into to get money out. A home is more you put money into it, so you have safety, you have a home, and your expenses are very low. That's what you're really doing there. 15. Put down anything when it comes to a home just to get into the deal. Whether it's putting down 1%, 3.5%, 5%, 20%. Well, 20% is actually good. But basically, putting in a small down payment doesn't really help you. And a lot of the times, well, first of all, you're going to get charged PMI, private mortgage insurance, a few hundred to $1,000 every single year because you paid less than 12% down payment, and that actually secures the bank, doesn't help you. But on top of that, it makes you have an excuse to buy a property that's a lot more expensive that you basically can't afford. So the deal is, my rule is, whenever you buy a home, have at least 10 to 20% down. And you buy a home as if you are going to put down 20%, and you're also going to have it on a 15-year mortgage also, okay? Because that restricts you to a smaller home. I could have been approved here, honestly, for like a $500,000 home, maybe even more. But what did I get? $130,000 home. Because what I want is to own a home. I'm not interested in having something fancy that I will never own. It's not the goal. The goal is to own it as fast as possible. 16, talking about money is bad manners. This kind of kept me away from making videos about money on YouTube for like the first years and years of my YouTube career stuff. And the truth is, you should talk about money. Because there's so many people out there that don't know anything about money because no one teaches people about money. So whenever I have a chance and an open mind and someone wants to hear about money and is interested in it, I always tell them what I think and what I've learned so far about money. Talk about money, talk about your salary, talk about your options, talk about your investment plan, talk about all this stuff with people that know what they're talking about, and educate your friends on it too. But if your friend is saying put all your money into Forex and Bitcoin, be very careful, okay? Be very careful. 17, the rule of 100. This is a very old rule of thumb, which is basically how much do you invest in bonds, how much in stocks. And the basic idea is you take the number 100, you minus your age, and you invest that much money into stocks and the rest into bonds. So if you're 25 years old, 100 minus 25 is 75. You put 75 into stocks, 25 into bonds. This rule is very old. It's a rule of thumb. It doesn't apply for everyone. And in reality, the new one is more like take 110 or 120 instead, and then minus that from the age, and then you put that much money into stocks. But my advice would always be, it would be a lot better to just have, just use common sense. Like, if you're a lot younger, you're not going to need the money right now. You're in your 20s to your 40s. It's okay to put all your money into stocks like I do. And when I say stocks, I don't mean individual stocks. I mean, for example, stock ETFs and stock indexes. And then you can put all your money in there. And you have so much time to regain that wealth if it does go down, and to have compound interest do its job. And then when you get closer to retirement, by maybe like around year 10 or so, you can start saying like, hey, I'm going to start putting in some more bonds in here. Maybe like an 80-20, then 80-30, 80-40. I mean, 70-30, 60-40, and then 50-50, right? Until you get to a good amount where you're actually happy. But take advantage of your youth to get the most returns, because that's when you actually need to grow your money faster. And having bonds early on does not help. It just helps with stability, which helps with you feeling comfortable with your portfolio being down. But if you know what you're doing, you don't got to worry about that much. 18, you need credit to buy a home. I used to think this was real, okay, and very true. The truth is you don't need credit at all to buy a home. So if you never had a credit card, never at all any credit history, you can buy a home with no credit history. You can rent an apartment with no credit history. What they will look at is, for example, your pay stubs. Like, have you had a job for the past 2 years? Show me your taxes. Show me your pay stubs for the past 2 years also. Show me what you have paid, all of your bills, your rent, and so on. And they will build you, for example, they call this manual underwriting, which is when they take a look at your personal finances from a manual point of view, not a monkey or robot doing it, and they tell you, hey, here is how much credit we're going to give you based on this information. So you don't need a credit score, but it does make the conversation a lot more easier when you do have a credit score. And that's why I maintain it using the one bill method, where you have a credit card, you put one bill on it, you set it to pay in full every month, and you forget about it. And that's it. You don't worry about it anymore. That's what I basically do. 19, the 4% rule. People don't know about this rule that much, but the 4% rule is a withdrawal rule for retirement. So when you get to retirement age, let's say you have $100 and you want to make sure you don't run out of money. Let's say it's like the 1700s, and $100 is like $1 million or whatever. It's a lot of money, right? But it's just simple math. $100, let's say, what they say is take out 4% of that, so $4 a year. So that way you let the money keep growing and growing and growing and compounding, and you don't run out of money in the end. But they say that that rule is very conservative, so you can increase it to 5%. So instead of 4%, you take out 5% and you'll be just fine. But for me, I like sticking to 4% because I'm a lot more conservative, and I also like having a little safety net in addition to just having 4% taken out also. And you only take the money out of your investments when you're actually there, you have the amount you actually need, and you actually need the money, but don't take it out for no reason. Have that money keep compounding and compounding and compounding. 20, the 25% rule when it comes to buying a home. The rule used to be that a home should not cost you more than 25% or a fourth of your monthly income. So as far as like the mortgage and so on. But the new rule that I created is actually the 33% rule, which is basically a home and all of its expenses, home, maintenance, taxes, insurance, HOA potentially, all those things put together should not exceed a third or 33% of your monthly income on a 15-year mortgage. And that way you'll be good to go. It's very conservative, but this way you're not taking on that much risk whatsoever. It gives you a little bit more leeway, but not really, because you kind of include everything. So 30% of your monthly income for a home on a 15-year mortgage is the rule when it comes to buying a home or paying cash if you have the cash available to you, or you want to save it up and then buy it later on. 21. And we made it all the way to the last one.
Screaming out, mama, we made it. Mama.
If you made it all the way here, guys, comment down below. Say long-term team, we made it. I wonder how many people actually made it all the way to the end of this video. But the last rule is a Benjamin Graham, buy a business for net. What this rule used to be, this rule is for investors and stock pickers, so I just included it here for fun. But it's the rule where it basically says you want to buy businesses that are selling currently in the market for less than they would sell if they were basically liquidated right now. So if I had a lemonade stand, and if I went bankrupt tomorrow, close the business down or whatever, I could basically get $50 for this lemonade stand, but it's selling for $25 in the market. Well, if you buy my lemonade stand on the market and then things don't work out for me, you have $50 worth of assets, so this way you have a guaranteed profit. but businesses and stocks that are selling for this price are basically very hard and super slim to actually find. So you don't do that at all. So right now I'm reading this new book on stock investing right now, and it's called Value Investing right here, from Graham to Buffett. But it's like a modern way to do investing, which I love a lot, and I'm actually enjoying the book tremendously. But guys, that's it. 21 pieces of advice that you actually are not really that great. And this video started out with 10, and I was just like, there's so much more. So I kept adding and adding and adding, and that's how we got all the way to 21. But that's it for this video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified. Long-term team officially out. Up here is another video. Here is my face. Click subscribe. And on top, if you want to call me, the link is down below. Peace.